Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please.
Just you. Educate yourself.
Roll call for attendance. Capiello,
Excuse me,
are you down there? Are you present? Please, name and address, please.
Oh, Joyce Capiello.
Robert Gibson.
Jim Sakosha, 21 James Henry Drive.
George Bailey, Chesley Drive.
Dan and Manshak, 353 Scruton Pond Road. All present or accounted for. Pledge of Allegiance, could we all stand? Here, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Everyone had a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Any objections or changes or issues you'd like to raise?
I have one thing, Mr. Chair.
Please.
So I sent out this afternoon a request from the fire chief for consideration of the select board to pursue 2 grants. One of them is more time sensitive than the other, so waiting until the April 11th meeting. I was hoping the select board could consider that tonight, and I'd propose to add it under new business.
So moved.
Second.
Second, from Mr. Sakosha. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good, we'll add that.
Thank you.
Okay,
And if you'd like to approve the agenda.
right.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we could have a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda of March 28th.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Approve the agenda. Time to open for public comment. Anyone who's here, you'll please come up here so we can record your comments. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, please. If you give your name and address.
You guys all know who I am, but it's Robert Russell, 99 Toland Road
Thank you.
in Barrington. I know there's a lot going on, so I'm gonna be brief. Just turn through. Got these glasses, so if I look a little bit awkward, apparently I'm okay. Need them now. I want to first say how nice it was meeting Joyce and Bob at the polls. I stood with you guys for 11 or 12 hours or something in the freezing cold. I mean, it was very windy. We broke bread. We, hung out and talked and laughed. I want to say it was very enjoyable. I'll make this brief, and I understand that most likely you guys will probably not respond. In regards to Joyce and Rob, none of this occurred on your watch, and I respect that. Okay. So I assume that you all believe in government accountability and transparency. I would assume that's correct. I've worked in government for 27 years. I only have 4 very, very simple questions. And up to this point, roughly a year and a half, that my business has been scrutinized, and almost a year that we've been under a failed lawsuit that was just dropped. I've been told that I could not speak to the Board of Selectmen because on advice of the town attorney, who is here. Actually, I get to meet them, and they seem like very pleasant people. They have a job to do as well. So I wasn't afforded my right to even speak to my constitutionally appointed board, some of whom I voted for. But I would like to know a town official that suggested that 2A Tactical should be sued. I don't know if that's a comment or a question, but I am proposing as a question. The second is, what was the cost to the town of the failed lawsuit? I would like to know. I believe it was egregious. I believe it was completely unwarranted. And I think that there's some information and some documents that I can provide that will shed some light, some of you that may not have realized some of the things that were going on behind the scenes. I held back for the last year plus, as my business was brutalized by a few people. I'd also like to know in the last 10 years, how many individuals. It's something that happens regularly in this town? Connor?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
may I ask a question?
Yes. Go ahead.
What type of businesses, please?
I'm sorry?
You had a general question of business. What type of business are you looking for?
No, I wanted to know how many individuals, businesses, or entities in the last 10 years that the town of Barrington has entered into a lawsuit, has sued.
Thank you.
I'm not asking for the names of the business.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, public comments limited to 3 minutes. You're up.
I have one last question.
Okay.
I want to know why the town couldn't have simply waited when we had actually got the ZBA date. We were going to the ZBA in October. We were told that that was the relief by the town attorney. And then the town decided to sue us anyway. The town has a ZBA. They should trust their ZBA. And yet the town dropped a lawsuit on us after we had already signed up for the ZBA. We won twice. The lawsuit was dropped about a week ago. It has cost my business greatly. And I'm not talking about the dollar sign. I'm talking about the lost sleep, the anxiety, the inability to build our building. I'm going to stop, but there's a lot of questions that I want to answer. I'm requesting to be on the agenda at the next meeting, and I'm asking the select board if we can be on the agenda because I have questions about this lawsuit and I would like answers.
Thank you, sir.
I'm making a formal request right now to be on the agenda on the 11th of next month. If you need it in writing, I have it.
So if you'd submit questions that you have or topics that you'd like to discuss,
I have it in writing right here.
fantastic.
Thank
May I approach?
Absolutely.
Public comment. Sure. Thank you.
When will I know if we're afforded to be on the next, the agenda for the next board meeting?
The finalized Wednesday at noon prior to the.
Asking when will I know? before I leave?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the date is. The Wednesday before the April 11th meeting is what
You have my email.
I do.
Contact.
Absolutely.
I'm actually all set. Thank you, Dennis.
Name's Dennis Pereira, 54 Dominic Drive, Barrington. My questions are similar in regard. I would hope that we have transparency in this town. I would hope that when the town files a lawsuit against an entity or a person, that there is records kept regarding that decision, including emails, including references to certain ordinances, including references to the Hampshire state rules. I would hope that we have that, and I would hope that it would be available via FOIA request or whatever is required, that we can find out, the public in general, what is the reason for lawsuits like this? What is the reason that 2A Tactical was targeted? Who is behind it? Who approved it? Who initiated it? And why did it keep going? Because right now, it may be 2A Tactical. Next week, it may be the tailor that has a sign out in front of his house on my way home. It might be the guy that puts out his CPA sign every tax season. I don't know. We don't know. Town doesn't know. So I would humbly request that in the interests of transparency, these documents, these records, these discussions via email or what have you, are documented, kept, filed, and available to the public. And if it's requires a FOIA request, then please let us know how we can get these documents, how we can get these records, how we can find out who was behind what and why. I don't think in this country that we have to justify it any more than that. We elect you. I understand that this is voluntary, you know, you don't get paid, what have you. You just have interest in keeping the town going, which I appreciate very much. I love living in Barrington. I'm good. I just want to know all of these things that I don't think it's impossible, improbable, or wrong to ask these things. That's all I have to say. I don't need to say or do anything. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Any other public comments? Anyone here? Other comments?
If anybody's participating virtually and would like to make a public comment, if you're using the Teams program, you can raise your hand. Let the chair know you're interested in speaking. If you're on a phone, you might have to press *6 to unmute yourself. Speak up, wait to be recognized by the chair. There will be another opportunity for public comment towards the end of the meeting. Last call for folks participating virtually interested in making a public comment. I'm not saying anything, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Apparently there's no other public comment. We'll now close public comment. Public hearings or invited guests. Our first invited guest is State Senator David Waters.
Thank you very much. It's awfully good to see you all, and congratulations on the elections. And for the record, Senator David Waters, District 4, representing Barrington, Dover, Rollinsford, and Somersworth. And I gave you a copy of my particular bills. If you have any questions about that, I meant to give out a card with my cell phone on it. I will do that at the end here as well. But I know Colin said you had some questions about some particular bills, and I'd be glad to provide any information I can, and if I can't provide some answers, try to get them for you. So, thank you for having me.
Mr. Chair, do you want to have members ask questions?
I was going to say, yes. We had some questions about some of the House bills,
Yeah.
but I guess this week they come across something.
Yeah, and I mentioned to Colin that two of the bills, 1359 and 1455, have been voted inexpedient to legislate, so they're off decks. And the ones that he mentioned to me were House Bill 307, which had to do with local municipalities and firearms ordinances and penalties potentially for public officials. And then there was election behavior. And again, their potential action taken against public officials and the conduct of elections. And then there's a question about Senate Bill 273 about special meetings for broadband bonding. And then the Meals and Rooms potential proposal. So those are the ones that I had on the list, but anything else you want to know about, my best.
Yeah, I'm just curious if those do get out of the House, which I'm not sure all of them are. Will they then come to the Senate, and do you have some sense of?
Yes, on House Bill 307, actually, because that was a retained bill, came to the Senate and it was voted favorably by the Senate. It was frankly a party line vote. I think the concern there is the ambiguity about how and why a local elected official might be held liable, both criminally and for lawsuits, if they even inadvertently promulgated rules about possession of firearms on public property, on town property or school property. And so that's something that, unfortunately, it might just be because somebody does or says something and they get caught up in a lawsuit about it. So that was my concern about it, but that has passed the Senate. So, and frankly, Senate House Bill 1567 about election conduct, I think is the same kind of issue that, we have hardworking public officials, volunteers to run the election, and now they potentially could be subject to a $1,000 fine if there was some misconduct. Now when I think that the misconduct is a little more carefully defined in the statute, you can look it up, but still, I'm very anxious about this, that we have public officials who are serving to the best of their abilities and might get caught up in some nuance of the law with no intention of their own to do any misconduct, but this is the nature of the legislation that is under consideration.
Do you accept questions here?
My question to you on that election piece, I know that the moderator here in town has a tremendous time of getting individuals volunteering to come to work, and also some of those that are on the paid staff to work just the election days. And if something like this were to come through, we're going to end up turning around and be opening all hours of the night just for those few that are willing to work would be there to conduct election. And I hope that comes into focus when everybody's thinking about this.
Well, thanks for that. And that's been my big concern too. I served as well in Dover, what they call selectmen, but those are just the ward officials that run the elections. And I did that for several years and I really enjoyed it, participating in a democracy. I think we got $12 for the day and lunch, so that didn't seem so bad to me. But, it is volunteer and it's hard work. It's long hours. And I am very concerned that it, puts people in a situation where they might feel that they're vulnerable. And I oppose these strongly. I am quite concerned about, I think we run such great elections in this state. I think we're a model for the country. Transparent, free, open, fair, well conducted, good procedures in place for counting ballots and recording votes. And I think we do democracy right. And I'm just very concerned that these kinds of bills are now potentially making it much harder for people just to do the job that we've been doing for 200 years in the state very well in our town. So I share the concerns. I know the Municipal Association shared its concerns, but these are passing on party line votes.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Governor likely to sign it?
I can't speak for the governor, but I haven't heard. I have not heard otherwise. Okay, that way.
Thank you.
And I think very often there is a communication made with the governor before such bills come to final votes. So.
If somebody else wants, I'll go.
Mr. Scotia, please.
Yep. Is the property tax system in place sustainable? If broad-based taxes are implemented, what will stop them from going up?
Well, my feeling is that it is extremely unlikely, and I have always voted against any new broad-based tax like an income or sales tax. Now we do have rooms and meals, which is a version of the sales tax. We do have the VTE, which is the equivalent of an income tax, and folks who file that. But in terms of what you think of other states doing, I think that's extremely unlikely. I think where we are in difficulty now is the downshifting to our municipalities, because the second year of the budget, did remove $34 million from local school funding. I am a co-sponsor of a bill that's going to bring back maybe about 14 million of that differential aid for schools to municipalities. And I think anything is better than nothing. But then, whether it's the pensions or other kinds of state services where the state used to pay for them and then they no longer are paying their share. We did a little better on revenue sharing this time, and we put that in a dedicated fund. So that seems a little more secure than it used to, but it's still at a much lower percentage than it was back when revenue sharing was set up when the state took over the taxing function. So this to me is what I'm hearing in all my communities and really across the state, that there has been really significant downshifting. And what that means is that the property taxpayer, that to me is the kind of real problem we're facing right now, is the increasing burden on property tax payers. And I'm concerned about that. I think that the state, you look at the surpluses we're running, you look at the potential revenues that the state has, and I don't think the state is paying its fair share any longer. And I think that means that the property taxpayer is likely to see increasing bills. So that's my general perspective on it. And anything that I think that is going to increase what the state will provide for school funding, or for police and fire, or I'm on Senate Transportation and worked very hard for a long time to make sure that we get the roads and bridges funding that comes down from the percentage you're supposed to get, and when we can to provide some more. We have the 10-year highway plan comes to Senate Transportation. We're the last committee that has it, and we're getting that bill, and that's what has all the formulas for distribution. It's other projects, and I think that these are important things to make sure that we're getting the financial support for the towns, which the towns frankly deserve. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but we're hearing it loud and clear, and I'm concerned about it.
Well, and in addition to the property tax being great, Hampshire is also one of the highest kilowatt hour rates in the country. Well, in a way, what authority does the state have to help with that? But also pushing, or not pushing, but the electric vehicle coming into the modern day. I mean, are there ways of not? I'm worried about the grid, the nuts and bolts of it, because okay, who's going to pay for that when that upgrade comes? Because we've already seen electrical rates go up this year, 11% in Maine. I forget what it was in New Hampshire, but who's that burden going to be on? Because property tax goes up, electricity goes up. It's not going to be fun to live here.
Well, thanks for asking that, and I'd be really happy to talk with you at great length. Issues.
I get it. We only have so much.
No, but I'm really concerned about affordability. And I think that we're getting double, triple whammied all around. It's energy costs, costs at the pump, property taxes, food costs are going up, childcare costs, if you can find childcare, costs are going up. If you're in business, cost of materials going up. So I have tried over the last 8 years in particular in the Senate to take the lead on energy issues, and to take the lead particularly as well on electric vehicle infrastructure and electric vehicle provisions for the state. I'll give kind of 3-part answers and try to be pretty quick with that. I've worked really hard to make sure that we are getting the New Hampshire Saves and the low-income energy assistance programs stabilized. The PUC made a decision in November which devastated those. I worked very hard with Chairman Vose in the House, and we came up with a bipartisan solution. My legislation to get New Hampshire Safe put back together sustainable funding for that to help families. Also, I have a bill that's on the list there. It may not be obvious that is going to stabilize.
I got it.
There. On offshore wind, I've taken the lead on that. I established New Hampshire's offshore wind Port Development Commission. I was just coming from meeting that down in Portsmouth. We are going gangbusters on offshore wind and its development in the Gulf of Maine. I think it provide cheap, sustainable power. They're talking about 20 to 30 gigawatts. That's like 15 Seabrooks out there in the Gulf of Maine. The levelized cost of energy for offshore wind is going to come in at lower than any other source.
What's the efficiency?
Gulf of Maine is the Saudi Arabia of wind because of the reliability of that resource. And they're talking, 60%. These new massive turbines, 15 megawatt turbines there. So now that's 5 years from now. We're likely to see the Gulf of Maine Task Force meet on May 19th, and the lease date for auctions for Gulf of Maine is looking to be in 2024. There's a lot of hurry up. The auctions have been held in New York. They're scheduled now for Carolinas. There's steel in the water, as they say, down off of Massachusetts. This is going to transform our energy picture and get us back to lower cost energy. It's important because we've got to electrify our transportation. We've got to electrify our heating and other industrial uses as well. If we're going to do something about climate, also we're going to do something about more reliable and less expensive energy supplies. So I've been working on electric vehicle infrastructure now for several years. We have a plan. We have an RFP out to spend the Volkswagen funding money to build a fast charge system on our interstates. We are receiving $17 million from the infrastructure bill. I have a bill on my list there. We're setting up a fund in DOT, which sets the priority for how we're going to get that money out, including to municipalities. So charging infrastructure can be built, and also to set up what the utilities will do in terms of what costs they can recover for the make-ready work, the improvements to the grid to make sure that we can do that. And there is, another bills I have that are going to ensure that we start to transition our state fleet to electric vehicles, and that municipalities who want to transition their fleets, both light duty and now heavy duty vehicles are coming on, save a lot of money with that, given not only the price of diesel, but maintenance, that municipalities can buy at the state rate if they want to buy those vehicles. So a lot going on there. I think there's huge potential. I think it is going to, in some ways, be, not just a technological future, but an economic future for us as well. But I've already talked too much about it, but you see what happens when you ask.
Just as a real quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know when the PUC is going to bring back the lighting program to New Hampshire?
Which one?
New Hampshire Saves for the
Yeah,
lighting?
We're back. I mean, my bill got passed. The governor signed it right away. We did a record time. We got that done, and the signing was second week of February. It's back, and the PUC has released the money. Eversource and the other utilities have opened up New Hampshire Saves again, so you can get in line again to get the funding for that. And we also, Chairman Bose, we created a formula that will set the funding levels and sustain it. So there's no more of this going on. So we got there. I mean, this is, I said that the governor signed it. I said, everybody take a picture of this. This is what bipartisan work. If you get together and problem solve, politics aside, Republicans and Democrats, both branches of government, we can get things done. And that it's crazy making that all this left and right stuff. Let's solve the problems. Let's do something about it.
Hi, I'm
Capella.
Capella. Just a follow-up question to that. You mentioned that there was funding for charging stations, so we're building a new town hall here. Is there money for a charging station?
Yeah, and the scheduling is that the money was authorized in the infrastructure bill, and then 2 weeks ago now, it was the budget bill passed. So it's been appropriated. So the rules are coming down now to the DOT. The money will be in the hand pretty soon, and then the rules to get that out. And my bill says that, one of the priorities should be municipalities can make application for that funding. There are some $2.5 to $5 billion of grant funding also for electric vehicle infrastructure that from the EPA, which we can apply for. And I suspect we might get another 20 million out of that. So this is like a 3-year pipeline, which is envisioned to get this money out. So there'll be time frame, and I think it'd be great time. And just as an aside, I wrote a grant to the New Hampshire UNH Sustainability, And we have a graduate fellow who's going to be here this summer, whose purpose is to help municipalities to develop plans for EV. So that person is going to be available, and we'll get we haven't selected the graduate fellow yet, but we're going to get a really good one. So that will be someone who can work with you to help, develop that plan and figure out working with utilities and then revision or charge point or other folks who would love to come in and help you out, do the charging infrastructure. So.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. Go back to the part on property tax. The property tax goes up. The individuals that rent property out also have to raise their rent. When they raise the rent, then it also raises those people that are on subsistence. So that means it drains more on the town and the state money. And so that in turn makes it go higher. And then the taxpayer has to pick that up. I hope that's a consideration that individuals will take up there and look at that, because not everybody can afford to have a house. They have the rent, and those that are on subsistence, if we have to pay for that, which don't misunderstand what I'm saying, just a consideration of the taxes that are going to be necessary to make this happen. And it's a down.
I mean, how is a young family supposed to get by these days? And I don't know what it is in Barrington, but I know in Dover, the occupancy, the rate is less than 1%.
It's everywhere.
That means there's no available apartments, right? And the prices, for 1 or 2 bedroom, you're up, what, $1,000, $1,200, $1,400. And how do you do that? And if you're on, minimum wage or lower wage, you're going to be coming to the municipality for help. So I think this has really gotten the attention of the governor. Our congressional delegation worked to get the funding into the infrastructure bill and the ARPA bill for affordable housing. And we got $100 million. The governor has announced no details yet, but he says he wants to have a $100 million program to help municipalities in particular be able to get affordable housing developed. So we'll have that money. Senate Bill 400, which we just passed, is a housing bill, which is meant to help build more affordable rental housing, and it's actually going to provide assistance to local planning boards and other boards for them to have the help that they may need to develop proposals to get funding for it. So it's it's a big problem, and I think we
that would be
neglected.
a nice thing to have and to help individuals though, because there's individuals that I know that are looking to go into housing for the elderly. And I mean, it's not there anymore. I'm not advocating, I'm just saying that once it goes down here, it just keeps going up and up and up. So private facilities are rented.
Well, I worked several years ago with my Senate colleague who tried to do the accessory dwelling unit. We finally got something passed there, and I mean, there are pros and cons about that. I think they're in a good place with, how you do it. But my feeling is that we've got to try everything. We really do. I mean, Barrington is a growing community. What a great place to live. But great schools, great sense of community here. Wonderful environment, can't be beat. But how are you going to find a place to live?
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Mr. Bailey again?
Thank you. I'd like to talk to you about Senate Bill 258. Reason I'm bringing up 258 is that with my work with American Legion in the past, we turn around, we would put flags out. But while we're putting flags out, we noticed that outside of the cemetery markers is where the owners at that time were able to put the African-American individuals, not inside the rock side, the stone or the iron fence. And, right now when you look at, I think it's 25 feet on the outside of it, is that measured from the edge of the fence, or is it measured from where the other graves are? And that's something that has to look at, because when we go out, well, when I used to go out, wife and I, we would see that there was just so many graves marked outside. And I couldn't figure it out until somebody set me down and explained to me what it is. Now, Barrington has over 100 graves, cemeteries, and I was just wondering if all these items are going to be taken into place, and if so, how are they going to adjust the law if they have 6 or 8 feet outside and you have the other, you know, so the measurement, because the RSA isn't really particular, it says from the edge, so and it's not covered. And that's a concern, to make sure everybody else has the respect that's necessary. So that's just my 2 cents worth on that, Senator, and I'd appreciate that if it just in your conversations.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. You know, I did, this particular bill does not change in any material way our existing statutes on burial grounds. Maybe 10 years ago now, I passed the bill that dealt with how we restore and preserve and protect them. And this says that if it is identifiable as an African-American gravesite from the period of enslavement, that in the process of protecting, conserving, that there be consultation with the descendant community. If there are any actual lineal descendants, that's what we do already. If not, that the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire or a similar group will be brought in to talk about how respectfully does that. It is amazing, as you say, these folks were segregated not only in life and not recognized as human, but also in death. And we have an opportunity, because there are so many of these burial sites being discovered. My own research, which I did teaching at UNH and now is the Black Heritage Trail Board, we are finding dozens and dozens of these sites, and some extraordinary individuals. You know, I mean, somebody like Ona Marie Judge in Greenland, who escaped slavery from the president's house of George and Martha Washington and lived up here as a fugitive for 50 years. And her grave site is much neglected out in the woods in Greenland, but what a towering and important historical figure. Now, just quick on this, I will take a look at that. I do know that wherever a grave is, whether it's in a graveyard that is identified and marked or not, or if a grave is a grave, then it is protected by state statute. But that 20-foot thing is interesting because, you know, we are talking about grave markers. It's not just the tombstone, but it also is the fencing, iron gates, other kinds of, you know, things that might be associated with a grave, whether they're inside the fence or outside the fence. So I'll take a look at that.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Piper has it.
Oh, I was just going to say, Joyce, to the topic of the electronic vehicle charging station, we've been in contact with the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. They've actually started the work to collect information from municipalities
Excellent.
of potential locations. I get the sense from the questions that they were asking that it's likely that they'll favor parts of a community that have the ability to walk to some services. So the new town hall might not be the best site, but if we can identify a site down by 9 and 125 where there is some limited walkability, it seems like that, based on the questions that were asked, it seems like that might be more in line with the target locations. But on the map that they provided a map link to, there weren't a lot of options along the 125 or 9 corridor. They did say that they were focusing on Route 16 and Route 4, which we don't have great sites for, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just, jump in there, Colin.
Please.
There are several different kind of pieces of this. Yes, the transportation corridors, first the fast charge to the major, the interstates and 101 and Spalding. But another phase of it is the secondary travel routes. That would be your 120 and other ones. But there's another piece of the pie here, which has to do with municipal needs, commercial needs, and also your public works. If you have equipment needs charging, if you're going to start moving to electric trucks or whatever that you, or fire or police, whatever it is. So I think that I know Stratford Regional Planning is looking at the travel corridor, but the intent here is that therefore to be money available for these other kinds of needs as well. And that's why I put, if you look at the bill I have on setting up that fund, you'll see that it articulates those various things. I know there was a question about broadband and that bill was simply trying to expedite so that when the funding is there for the broadband, that you can expedite the process for having a special town meeting to do the bond. On the meals and rooms, it was hard to get an answer on what the actual impact on Barrington would be because it's still just a proposal. So legislative budget assistant couldn't calculate out what the actual dollars might mean here. I have a lot of feelings about whether, that is really needed or not. And I'm very concerned that whatever they do doesn't take away from the amount that the municipality gets from that to me. Take a couple cents off it. I don't think anybody's going to lower the price of their burger. So we'll see. There's no real proposal yet.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to leave.
Thank you.
The cards I forgot to leave, and it has my cell phone on it. So,
Please.
And I'll be happy to come back maybe at the end of the session and tell you what we actually did.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much for allowing us to talk to you. And the phone will be- Thank you, sir. The other group that we'd like to introduce to the community, since they haven't been introduced recently, thank you, is Mitchell Municipal Group, our town attorneys. If you'd like to come up and say hi to the folks that are watching on screen here virtually. Please,
I actually only
Mitchell.
see two of you.
come on, Joe, move over. There we go.
My hope was actually not to be in the picture, but okay.
Nice.
You're right in center.
Sure.
Student, we're
A
friends.
little bit more. All right.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, at least we get to
Sorry,
go.
Again, you might want to kind of introduce yourselves and just again, so the community will know you and have some sense of what you're doing with us and how we're working together.
Sure. I'm Walter Mitchell, and this is my partner Laura Spector Morgan and Joe Driscoll. We're three of the four lawyers that represent the town. Naomi Butterfield was here earlier briefly to meet with the selectmen, and she's our employment law person. And she had to run on to another town having a little dispute. We've been pleased and honored to represent the town for probably 20 years. Our firm is located in Laconia. We represent about 60 municipalities throughout the state, mostly towns, some village districts, some cities. And we don't have any we don't take private clients. We only represent municipalities. And so it gives us an opportunity to see problems over and over again, and to share with you the experience that we already had. We were asked to come down this evening to meet briefly with the board and to stay for this meeting, and we're glad to do it.
Anyone have any questions? Do you think we've?
Just saying thank you.
Hey, it was great meeting with you guys.
It really was.
So glad to meet you all in
It's-
person.
Yeah, it's,
Much, we've, I think I can speak for Connor and the board as well, that we appreciate your services years. Forward to continuing. Thank you.
so do we.
Us too. All
Okay.
right, thank you all.
Finance.
Great night.
Welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but you need.
We gotta get some dinner.
Yeah, exactly. We do too. Mr. Gibson. just for everyone's interest, I think we have agreed that we would be happy to hear from the school. That saves me from making my somewhat remark again. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me and, thanks for including this in your agenda. I don't have much of a report. First of all, congratulations to your two members. We went through the similar process, certainly a crowded field, but ultimately, the board remained intact with its current members. Like the town, the school was very fortunate in getting approval for its initiatives at the town meeting. So don't have a lot to report on really. Our biggest initiatives over the next 3 months will be hiring a new middle school principal. As some may know, our current principal is leaving to become the superintendent of the Raymond School District, and also doing some short-term and longer-term planning with regards to getting a new superintendent. Our current superintendent just accepted a position as a superintendent for Hudson School District. So it's going to be a busy year. It's going to be a busy spring, summer, I guess, as well. So that's pretty much it for what we're up to.
Dave, could you talk a little bit about the ECLC's numbers for pre-kindergarten?
I can talk in round figures only because I don't have them in front of me. But with regards to our upcoming kindergarten class, right now I think we're trending close to 115, which is fairly large for Barrington. Every once in a while we have a I guess for lack of a better term we could call it a surge, but it usually only lasts a year or two. We've had some consistent growth at the kindergarten and preschool levels over the last 3 years. So we're going to be keeping an eye on making sure that, we right size those classrooms and teachers, in particular the ECLC kindergarten and as well as first and second grade at the elementary schools. So it's always a challenge to figure out what's a blip and what's a trend. So, we're keeping our eyes, really peeled on that.
I think you were mentioning at the last meeting that for 114 this year, and then we're talking 115 for next year.
Sounds about right.
Getting to be a trend.
2 years. Yeah. It's odd to have 2 years, but yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, please.
Do you have any provisions? I mean, I know we're talking about blips and stuff, but you said you guys were looking forward. So do you guys have any provisions going forward if the numbers keep growing, where the kids are going to go?
Well, part of the plan when we renovated this building was to make sure that we had adequate space. So, really, if we needed to add another kindergarten classroom, we have the space here. Same holds true at the elementary school. We have a little bit more, growing space there. Longer term, assuming, again, 2 years doesn't necessarily make a long-term trend, but longer term, we will probably have to, start thinking a little bit more globally about the elementary school and how we're utilizing the space and where we can create more space. Middle school again has a bit of headroom, so we're not really constrained at this point.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you. One of the things that I had mentioned to Mr. Gibson is perhaps we could have a joint meeting someday. Our whole board at some point. There are some things that we probably need to discuss together as boards. At the candid forum, several people brought up the possibility of a joint ABC, and with the new superintendent coming in, we may need to kind of formalize some of the arrangements that we have, share services we share.
Yeah, historically we have had joint meetings. I think it's probably hasn't happened for maybe 2 or 3 years, but it's a good habit to at least do one annually, a couple times a year.
Everyone thinks that's a whole idea. I'm sure you'll discuss it at your board meeting next Tuesday. But get together and set. Have to argue whether we're gonna have it on a Tuesday or Monday, but we'll.
Well, usually are pretty easy. Yeah, yeah.
Do you have questions about us?
No questions at this point. So, no, I don't think so.
Thank you very much.
But again, thanks for having me and, good luck.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming by.
You bet.
We're happy to have you stay if you'd like, but
Unfortunately, I have two kids that are anxiously awaiting me, so.
that's that and eating, so.
What's that?
That and eating.
I don't know. Yeah, they expect dinner every day, apparently.
Thank you very much. Other public hearing that we need to discuss is the acceptance of the community project funds for the new town hall. $1.5 million from the federal government. Yes, Mr. Kosha.
I would like to make a motion to accept and expand the community project for the new town hall and primary emergency operations center in the amount of 1,000,000.
500,000.
Yeah, no, I just was.
Sorry.
1,500,000. Like, what's going on?
Second.
Happy to second that.
Oh, okay. Let Joyce second it.
Ms. Capiello, second. Any discussion? Thought not.
This needs a roll call, right?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, actually, it's a public hearing, so you have to
Yep.
open and close
Oh,
a
that's
public
right.
hearing
Sorry.
before you can make a
Sorry.
decision.
Okay. Is there any comment from those in attendance?
So again,
No.
this is a consideration statutory requirement. The voters are the only folks that can appropriate funds, but in special circumstances, the legislative body can delegate to the governing body, which is the select board, the ability to accept and expend unanticipated funds, which these are under that category. The public hearing was posted in the newspaper as required. We don't expect to see the funds for at least a few months, but we're getting the statutory requirements out of the way. If you're participating virtually and you'd like to make a comment, you can raise your hand in the chat feature or press *6 to unmute yourself, speak up, wait to be recognized by the chair.
So far, nothing. We'll give it a minute.
Mr. Bailey might have a question.
I'd just like to see us have consideration, as the senator said, we were for charging stations. I would like to know, just for personal knowledge, can some of that money be used for the charging stations because it's a new project? Will that be included, or is that something that we can't just, I'll give you time to research that. And,
I'd be glad to.
yeah, thank
I
you.
think that the additional funding to,
It'd be-
in addition to the 1.5.
I would hope so.
Yeah, it's a work it all the way around. It's something we gotta look at.
I don't see anything on this end, Mr. Chair.
Hearing nothing online or by telephone, I will close the public hearing, and it's time, we'll probably ought to do a roll call vote for $1.5 million. So,
Joyce Capiello, 23 Lois Lane, A. Aye.
Gibson, aye. Sakosha.
Bailey, aye.
Patrick, aye. Unanimous, we'll take the money, I guess.
Oh, definitely.
Vote.
Yeah. It'll make it. Okay, let's turn our attention to the consent agenda. Are there any problems, concerns with the consent agenda?
Should we make can I make a motion to put the position approvals into the consent agenda, the appointments?
That would be appointments A, little I, B, little I, C, little I, and C, 2 little i's. The appointments vote tonight, second review. And unless you want to make separate motions and votes on each of those, I think what Rob's asking for is the consent agenda.
I would like to second Mr. Gibson.
Back with the amendment, all those in favor of the amendment? All in favor of the amendment? Going an aye and aye.
Aye.
Aye and aye. Okay, the consent agenda is amended now. Anyone? Consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
As amended.
Gibson.
Very good. Joshua, second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Good. All
Well,
right.
that was nice. I like
Nice
that.
job. That works well. So we've done all the votes for it. Now you'll notice that there's, this is Suchi,
Masucci.
thank you. Is applying, and we would vote her the next time.
We just voted her tonight
Yeah.
as an
Oh,
alternate.
that was as an alternate. I'm sorry. It was Steve Diamond.
Yes, that's the next item on the agenda. If you'd like a brief introduction, I'm happy to provide it.
Please.
Okay, so I sincerely apologize. Mr. Manshek and I talked about it. I've also talked about it with Mr. Diamond. When we updated the appointments to boards procedure and created the new application, we set up a separate email account with lofty goals of funneling all the applications through there and having them all in one place. It works great, except at the time that we set it up, we didn't take it across the finish line to make sure that those emails were ending up in the appropriate inboxes. And so as a result, we learned about it with some Conservation Commission appointments. Said, hey, well, I emailed it in. Hey, well, we don't have it. And then, oh, by the way, guess what? We found it. Fortunately, in general, unfortunately for Mr. Diamond, there was one in there that we didn't know about otherwise, and that was Mr. Diamond's. And so until a few days ago, we didn't know that he was interested in being reappointed. And so as a result, and in a need to fill the planning board, the select board has made multiple appointments. So Mr. Diamond is still interested in being a full member of the planning board. He's not interested in being an alternate, and he will remain on the Stratford Regional Planning Commission as a delegate from Barrington. In our discussion, he mentioned that he'd likely be interested in participating in the master plan chapter revisions, which are upcoming. And so, in talking with the chair, given the circumstances, an option for the board to consider would be to simply table the application for appointment until such time a vacancy is available, which may be between now and March, but at the latest would be next March when appointments happen, and consider the application at that time. And Mr. Diamond said he would be interested in being considered when time comes.
I just have a point of clarification. So board size, is that determined by RSAs? Is that determined by select board?
It's determined by statute, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Motion to table? Motion to table his application.
I'd like to make a motion to table Steve Diamond's application for appointment to the planning board for future consideration when a full member seat becomes available.
Second that.
Haley, aye.
Are we doing this in order, or how is this
I don't
going?
care.
Well, I do, so I know.
All in favor, say aye. All in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay. We agreed, all agreed to table. The other discussion is Mr. Embry, as an alternate to the zoning board. He's often attending meetings. We had anything further, we'd vote on him at our next meeting.
He was here earlier. I
Yeah,
thought he might be
fine.
sticking around for this discussion.
Yeah.
Did make it out tonight.
I see none, so, any discussion on Mr. Embry?
So this means that he's just gonna move there, and then we'll vote on him next meeting.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then to the library trustees. Gaudiello and Brunda as an alternate, Melanie Haley as an alternate. I think you see their applications. Any questions or concerns or any comments you'd like?
These are three positive people, that's all I can tell you.
I think they would be wonderful choices for the library.
We will then vote on them
Good.
at the next meeting. Conservation Commission, these are the ones that were kind of lost in, kind of lost in the cyberspace. And Grossman is, currently the chair. Scott Heron is a new, resident in our area, who'd like to be. Jenny Stewart, all of whom, would like to be appointed.
Chairman, I have no comments, except grateful for their concern to participate.
I agree completely. Any other comments, questions? And we'll discuss, and we will vote on them at the next meeting. And finally, the Lampert River Local Advisory.
Oh, okay, all right, that's all I wanted to make sure.
You made it.
I don't want to be out there in the jungle.
Ignore it. Mr. Wallace,
I'm lost.
Mr. Wallace, wants to be on the Lampert River Local Advisory Committee. Any questions?
He's the only applicant.
And here's
Currently serves in that capacity. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
Yep.
yeah, he's been there. for a
And
while.
to be clear, this is not an appointment, but a nomination for appointment for statute. But I haven't, in my experience, seen a nomination not be appointed.
And we will vote to nominate, I guess. All right, any other questions? Okay,
Okay, so I'm all taken care of. That wasn't part of the consent agenda, correct?
that's correct. All those people would vote to try to more part of the consent agenda.
Thank you very much.
There we go. Mr. McIver,
Yes, nothing that's not already on the agenda. We covered the work anniversaries at the first week of March. Still appreciate each of those employees.
Ms. Dobbs? Do you have anything for us?
And also,
Okay. So we're gonna what sign that or? Right. Okay. We'll get those as we go. All right, shall we turn to old business? I think we actually have I think we've agreed on all of this for the liaison to the board commission. I'll go through them for the record. Transfer Station Recycling Center Committee, Manshrek. Recreation Commission, Scotia will continue, correct?
Yep.
Very good. We're all, Technology Committee, Ms. Capiello.
Yeah.
Advisory Budget Committee, Manshrek. School Board, Manshrek. Planning Board, Capiello. Library Trustee, Bailey. Trails Committee, Gibson. Zoning Board of Adjustment, Bailey, also a member, Conservation Commission, and Towns Land Committee, Mr.
I have a quick question. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something here. I know we approved the consent agenda A through E, but the appointments were under there as well for Donna Succi, Steve Diamond, Zoning Board, George Bailey, Recreation Commission, both David Johnson, Dale Sylvia, all that was under there?
Just the ones to be voted, so it would include, Ms. Masucci, Bailey, Dale Sylvia, David Johnson, and the rest. Will be voted on our next meeting.
Just the ones with the yellow boat highlight next to them.
Good.
Because those are the only ones that are here for the second review. because it's a review
Yeah,
process.
you bet. So we voted in Donna and all them, all
Yes.
with the yellow vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then table Mr. Diamond,
Right,
as a separate issue.
okay.
Was that your intention, Mr. Sakosha, when you voted?
Yeah, but I was just going back through and, saw wanted to make sure, it was just kind of, was like, oh boy. It was maybe we haven't got to it yet, but it was with the town employees, with the, 2.5%, the Stefan Cola, I just had it here.
That was on the consent agenda.
Okay,
So that was under the
we'd
consent
agreed on that
agenda.
yeah, way back, okay.
Yeah, and that's a procedural step. The select board kind of makes that decision during the budget process, but it's contingent on the vote passing. Once the.
Here it is. Okay, yep, sorry.
Okay, see all the appointments. And again, we appreciate all the volunteers, for all those boards we go through. Reappointing. Any questions so far? Okay, new business. Question is, should we put tricentennial license plates on all vehicles? I think one of the questions that was raised was, if we put them on our police vehicles, will the people being stopped know that that it's really the police department? And I think if I'm not saying more than I should, that you don't think that's a problem?
They'll just get pulled over by the state.
Don't have any low profile vehicles. So the only vehicle that we have is currently low. The newest Explorer can't be outfitted because there's no equipment to outfit it because of COVID. So it's not being used for patrol function, it's straight function. That's not on the street stopping cars anyway. Not really sure people look at our stopping folks. They're looking at the lights, and the stickers and all that stuff. So in all honesty, I don't see it being a problem. If you want to check legality of it, I haven't talked to the state.
Oh,
If the legislature has approved it for vehicles in Barrington, certainly we're a vehicle in Barrington, just like I don't see SP stopping me having my MT plate on. But I will double check.
which place?
Rick told me the tricentennial plates look bigger in the rear view.
That's right.
Shrink quite a bit.
Well, you-
I don't see a problem with it. If that's the excuse that someone wants to give,
Call the state. Okay, if anyone has any objections to this, costs about $600, that's available in the expendable trust fund. Is that correct, Chief Walker? That's Bailey.
At the end, come December 31st, those plates are gonna come off, and I think that, all town employees, should have their name put in a bucket and, draw it out to give them the, license plate.
you think I'm giving the one back?
That's all right, long as you
So it
give.
sounds like we're gonna have a silent auction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you live in Stratford, it doesn't count. Well, actually, it does, because Stratford was part of Barrington, in 1722. Yeah, but.
Well, because I can see, just like he said, well, I'm gonna take this, all right, so chief keeps it, but then you have all the ones in all the other vehicles. And this way here it would cut out any animosity to somebody else that got it. Well, I was driving that truck the most, so I should get it. You know, this is what I'm getting at. Sometimes child's play was something that's free is there. So I'm just trying to head it off.
I would like to make a motion to accept tricentennial license plates on town vehicles pending legal.
Can you make sure that you appropriate, authorize $600 from the tri-?
Authorize $600 from the tricentennial committee
Expendable trust fund.
expendable trust fund for license plate on town vehicles pending legal.
No, I guess that didn't go far. Yeah, Bailey, aye.
Bailey second, I take it.
Yes, that's correct.
And then all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
He left.
Okay. Next issue. This is kind of an interesting one about the, what is the Municipal Managers Association in New Hampshire. A scholarship to, or a fellowship rather, for a project, which Connor has a few suggestions. Numbers 1, 2, and 3. But we need a motion to application for that.
Yes, and I would bring the final draft of the application to the April 11th meeting for your final sign off. But before I spend the time doing that, I want to make sure you at least are supportive of the idea of pursuing this opportunity.
Was this part of copying all our files and stuff and getting it put away? So was this years ago? We talked about it, doing this, and we never did anything with this managers association. Would that person be working with you in that capacity, or somebody else to help get that moved along, or what?
Well, that's one of the projects that I proposed that I would include in the application that they could focus their time on. What they ask for is they want the fellow to be exposed to all aspects of municipal government, but with a focus on one particular project. And so they like to know that ahead of time so that if selected, they can align the right fellow with each community that's awarded the fellowship.
Okay, well, that hasn't. So this has nothing to do with the photo. It was just I just wanted to ask that
But
question.
that's a project that I proposed. We're actually, Stratford Regional Planning Commission received a grant, and they used part of that to fund a program to help communities digitize their paper files. And so they'll be coming to town for 2 weeks in May. And they'll spend those 2 weeks in Barrington working with staff and transferring physical documents to electronic documents. And so that will be a good project. If we were awarded this fellowship, it could dovetail nicely that, after they come and kind of get the jump start, they can focus on the specifics. But there's a couple of other ideas in there that I think are good ones.
Well, I know this is just something that came up with Mr. Chairman. It's just ask. So now I have the answer. That's fine. Thank you.
I think the project would be a little more than just copying out the.
Oh, no.
Or scanning them.
I understand it, but what I was saying is that would they be used for this? Because I'm grateful that, like you said, they're gonna be used for other projects. But,
Another aspect.
yeah, but,
Other than just the scanning.
yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Scotia,
So I know this says it's gonna be, if awarded 50-50 split, but is this gonna cost us 8,000 or is this gonna cost us 4,000?
4,004. Good question.
So 4,000 for pretty much 2 weeks of labor out of this apprentice, for lack of better terms?
400 hours.
400 hours?
It's separate programs. I was just letting Mr. Bailey know that we have something going on for document distribution separately.
That's my question. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, they propose a 20-hour-a-week schedule for 5 months. They would allow a municipality to determine the schedule that fits and the municipality. So it could be anywhere in between part-time, full-time, but a temporary fellowship.
any other questions? So just as a straw vote, let's put it this way, is anyone opposed to this application?
Well, I know we're going into hard times here, with inflation and everything going up. And, I don't know, it's 4,000, comes up to $10 an hour. I would have to see how much that would like, if nobody does these fellowship projects that Connor has, I mean, who's gonna end up doing them? Does it make sense? I mean, we're going into a new town hall also, moving there, moving this. I mean, is it gonna be, and I like the idea of it, but maybe it's not just the right time. Maybe once we get settled in. Because when's our tentative move-in date for the town hall?
Substantial completion right now is scheduled for July 15th.
And when would this be started?
Sometime June timeframe.
Right. I mean, alternately, having a young, energetic person here during that transition may actually be helpful for the town.
Yeah,
Right, but they're not looking to move boxes. They're looking to do their fellowship program in a
Right,
way,
yeah.
so. I love that good old soul that you're talking about, but I think they're hard to find nowadays. Just my opinion. I mean, 4 to 5 years, so.
These are, at least some of these projects here are things that would be very useful to have for the community. They're not something that has to be done right now, but I think this will be, these are things that we're probably pay attention to in the future, and this might be a relatively inexpensive way will reduce the town government, the other aspect of it.
Is there,
My biggest thing is things being open for them, like, hey, yeah, we're moving, but, construction, trust me, it gets delayed every day, whether there's a hiccup here or there. So, I mean, that's my only thing. I would hate to put the 4,000 up and being like, yeah, I know you're supposed to work these 2 weeks, but, kind of moving.
400 hours.
Or 400, but.
5 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 months.
400 hours, 20-hour work weeks, correct?
Yeah, but over 5 months is the point.
Right. So is that, we just pick and choose which weeks they want to work, or we don't set them up with a schedule? I don't know much about this. I'm more or less asking questions. But, that's my only fear. That's
We
all.
would have control over setting the schedule that worked best, mutually beneficial. They don't dictate the schedule. So if we were awarded and we were partnered with a fellow, we would determine the schedule.
Well, it shut me down if you think I'm wrong. But right now, I wouldn't want to see this individual come here and be used as a gopher. I would like to see him come here and do the training as necessary to help him become a better skilled individual when he finishes the fellowship. So when he goes out into the public world, he'll be better off for it and not sit there and say, all I did was move boxes and do this and do that. I see where Jim's coming from, correct?
Well, that's a point, and, it's just, I would want them to have a positive thing, being like, oh yeah, I was there for this, and then, I don't know, just a thought. Because, I know that $4,000 stuff's gonna come up in the town hall, being like, hey, we need an extra desk, we need an extra this, we need an extra that, where are we gonna get the funds for it? I mean, I know somebody else is throwing down 4,000 for this, but, that 4,000 could buy a lot of, office supplies, or, an extra plumbing fixture and a kitchenette, or, you know what I mean? So I would just be cautious rolling in to a new build. We got a new town hall, a lot of expenses this year. I know most of it's appropriated for, but not all of it.
On the other side, I think these projects kind of project way into the future, especially the personnel policies, the insurance business. I think those would project way up into the future. So this, again, might be the time to do it. Not just think a little bit longer term rather than just get us through this next 2 or 3 weeks.
So as one who's supervised many college students in doing placements in the community, usually there's a professor or someone who's also looking at the quality of experience to make sure students aren't used to just do copying or moving. So there would be that perspective also, that this would be quality work. And also some of these projects probably involve a lot of computer time, that if there were days when, you know, the office was in a disarray because they were moving, students could be doing much of this work on their own on the computer in different locations, I would think.
How often is this project available, fellowship? How often?
They have done it annually.
Did we do it last year?
No, never done it before that I'm aware of. I think the board considered it when John first announced his retirement, John Scruton, the previous town administrator. And I can't tell from I couldn't tell from the public meetings whether they decided to go forward and weren't successful or decided to go in a different direction.
Went in a different direction, we didn't bring it forward. That's two concerns, so.
I don't know, with them doing it annually, I would just, you know, I don't think 1 year is, you know, 1 year can make a difference, but I don't think it would be a huge miss out if we did it this year, because I know, you know, Connor, you're gonna end up getting more busy, you know, with your duties, especially with the town hall. Would we have how would we do this? Would we set this person up with somebody on our staff and say, hey, you guys are kind of like the buddy system from here? And
Yeah, I'd supervise the fellow. And like I said, the goal is kind of twofold. One, to make sure they're exposed to municipal government. And so it would be, you know, involvement in anything that's going on, to include the new town hall project, include other projects that are going on, but also specific focus on a project. So, you know, I proposed the development and implementation of policies and procedures for electronic records. So that's something that's really important to do. And so if we didn't have somebody to do it, that would likely be myself or a combination of myself and Tiffany working on that. And it's not something that I would necessarily need to be doing. It's something that, you know, a fellow could research the statutes and look for best practices from other communities and help develop and propose policies and procedures for us to consider. And so it would be extra, I mean, it would be extra work for me to work with the fellow, but the idea is that it would be mutually beneficial, that the town would benefit just as much as the fellow would. Similarly with the proposed personnel policies. So this is something that needs to happen, whether we have a fellow or not. And there's a lot of steps of that process that if we did it well, would require a fair amount of work. Researching other communities, researching labor laws, updated labor laws that might not any longer be consistent with our personnel policy. And so having somebody to do that research and compile proposed policy adjustments and integrate those policies, those proposed policies into our policy manual. I even went as far in this as to, what I proposed, to work with staff. You know, the folks in these types of programs are likely destined for leadership roles in communities. And so to have an opportunity to see behind the scenes on the human resources side and help explain some of these new policies to employees, which is something that I do, human resources administrator does on a regular basis, and it's very time consuming. And so if there's somebody else that was part of the process that was doing some of that, I mean, it would save time for me or others to do that. So I certainly appreciate, you know, your concern that it would be extra work for me. I think it's a good idea because I think these are things that I would like help with, that it would be nice to have help with. And, you know, in my mind, the cost benefit is no benefit as far as time saving for me not having to do these things, and time spent helping them do them successfully.
well, you're still gonna have to go back through them and check their work, right?
Absolutely.
Check their credentials. So I mean, we're still applying some time to it. And it's, you know, you said it best there, you know, and a lot of these kids coming in are projected leaders. So, you know, I'm looking at it, yeah, maybe a 95% chance they don't stick with Barrington, maybe a 5% chance they do. I mean, do we have a lot of people, you know, in the spots that are retiring where these kids are a shoe-in, being like, oh yeah, Dan did such a great job, you know, and hey, why don't you put in an application and go through the approval process?
Yeah, I don't know that from my perspective, I don't know that the goal is to have the fellows stay in Barrington when they're done. You know, we don't have a tremendous amount of attrition. There isn't a lot of turnover. And so I don't think it's their expectation in the program that a position would exist beyond the end of the fellowship. And so I wouldn't be concerned that a position would be.
Good.
Any other questions or concerns? That's a good point. Let's, though, see if on or off to proceed, at least to fill out the application, and we can approve or disapprove the application if you think that's appropriate. So can we kind of do a straw poll? What do you think?
Yes.
Bailey says yes. Gabriella says yes. Gibson nods yes.
I'm a no.
Yes. And Jim Scotia shaking his head that way, but let's at least proceed, and we'll have a little more. We have a little more sense of other concerns, and we'll be able to address that, I think, better next at our next meeting. That I summarized that fairly well. Okay. Reports.
We added
Oh, I'm sorry.
grants.
Yeah, the grant.
So you have a email with some details that I printed out for you here. Essentially, there's two grants. One is ARPA funds, which is a Gopher. A private grant opportunity through Firehouse Subs. The Gopher funds is the one that's a little bit time sensitive, so we appreciate you considering the request tonight. And the ask is really just the authorization to pursue these grants before we write them. So you have a bite at the apple first. Chief Walker can speak to them.
I think anytime that Chief Walker or anybody can move forward and try to get us more money to help run this town, I think it should go right through that quick.
Talk to us a little bit about the Gopher Fund.
So Gopher funding, the town applied, town is eligible for $50,000.
That was the generator for the public
Right.
safety building, right?
So, I have one of my part-time fellows that asked me if he could start looking at it. So he identified. We're looking for the Gopher funding, we're looking to place the stretcher and upgrade the stretcher in the main. Stretcher can be put in the field. One person, come in and nice thing to have. It's a nice thing to have, but it'd be something that I would struggle to ask for budget wise because it's a pretty expensive, nice thing to have. So using grant funding would be an avenue to go after that. And then more importantly, a number of years ago, we put AEDs in the cruisers that we had and in the fire trucks, and over time we've added cruisers and not necessarily added AEDs, and a lot of these AEDs are nearing end of life, and so we felt this was an ideal project to go after, use these funds to purchase 14 AEDs that are compatible with the equipment that we currently use on an ambulance. So if the police officer gets to the scene first, puts the pads on and uses them to shock the patient, when we get there with our equipment, we just unplug them and plug them into our piece of equipment, so we don't have to swap the pad. Again, the AEDs are a kind of an item that we should have, but they tend to run around $2,000 a piece, so it makes it tough to budget for them. So the Gopher funding is a 10% match. I would propose that the funds for the 10% match come out of the Equipment Capital Reserve Fund that we established a number of years ago for this purpose to purchase equipment. Time's pretty short on the Gopher funds. I think it's June 30th. We have to have the money and spent and all that other stuff. And then the Firehouse Subs grant, because we fit within the catchment area of the store they have in Dover, we can apply for funds. So he's looking to apply for an auto pulse or one of those type devices that will do CPR on a patient. We have some pretty long runs, and Sometimes, it requires us to have 3 or 4 people in the back so we can do good, effective CPR. And so the idea would be is that we put this device on and use it because we have limited resources, especially during the day. And again, nice item to have, but I would struggle to sit in front of you as a board and the budget committee and say, will you incur the expense of to have this unit? So,
No match on that.
no match on that one.
One question, that auto load, the ambulance?
Yep.
Be locked in, like, is that it for that ambulance? No other, like, say if the auto, stretcher breaks, are we still able to load a regular stretcher into there?
So yes, we would be able to do it manually. So they all have a system in which we could do it manually.
I think Dr. Chief gets 14A.
And kudos to your zealous staff person for
That's-
reaching out and
I
finding.
certainly appreciate the fact that he's done a lot of front work to make sure that we're good on that project would be about $59,000. So our piece of 10% match and 50,000 is allowed, that we can send around $9,300 out of.
Where's the-
And it may save us backs of our people too. Sure. please.
Are you ready to entertain a motion?
Unless there are any other questions of Chief Plucker. That's a big entertain. That's entertaining.
Okay, entertain. Here we go. I'd like to make a motion to approve Chief Walker's memo of March 28th for allowing him to go for the Gopher Fund and for the Firehouse Subs grants.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Oh,
To make sure that it's appropriated through the equipment fund.
I don't
We'll
think,
wait until we get awarded.
just apply for the grant. Yeah, 'cause we may not get the grant, but any other questions? Sorry. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I appreciate your indulgence in allowing me to.
You couldn't sneak up on an explosion.
Oh, I know. Thank you very much.
To have a whole meeting without you talking would be almost.
It'd be a day,
I heard you were autographing the tricentennial plates. Those were only a limited edition.
Right. Ms. Capiello, do you have any reports on your committees and or concerns?
I do not. The planning board met, I think, the night after our recent select board meeting, and I was not able to attend the meeting on that short notice.
Okay. Good, sir.
It was the next night. I was out of town.
Mr. Gibson attended a meeting Saturday at,
Yeah.
what, about 12 hours notice, so.
Yeah, Saturday, I went to the Town Lands Committee meeting Saturday morning, and their focus was the Homestead subdivision, and they plan to submit a revised set of options for the select board and town administration to consider regarding how to proceed with that since the warrant article passed.
So at the,
Yeah.
they got their projects going on and they're just planning for the future. So nothing too crazy going on. Everything seems to be going good.
Haven't they done a survey? Aren't they doing a survey?
I don't know. I would have to ask Jessica Tennis because I had checked in with her earlier and she didn't mention that.
Okay,
Jim, when do they plan to have their building open again?
yeah.
She didn't mention that either.
Okay.
So.
Jessica, are you there? Can you answer either of those questions? See you out there.
She may be home with her kids, but the,
Up there she is.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, Jessica, thank you.
So as of right now, we're anticipating being back open, most likely the week of April 4th. We're just waiting on the plumbing portion to be completed. And the survey that Dannon was referring to was the adult drop-in program. So we were just looking for results from the community to see what type of adult drop-in programs they were interested in us possibly starting up in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you very much.
Actually, Jessica, I have a question about that. Is the survey gone on to everyone in Barrington, or how would one access that survey?
So Alex had put that survey out through, I believe, the constant contact system that we have. So it went out through our listserv database that we utilize. I believe it also was posted to Facebook, but I would have to verify that. But I do know that it went out at least through the constant contact, which has, I think, over 2,000 emails within it.
Is it closed, Jesse? If somebody wanted to respond now, is it too late?
At this time, I believe it is still open and we are accepting inquiries. So if anybody is looking for that link, they can just reach out to me directly and I can definitely provide them access to that for them to provide their responses if they're interested.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate it. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you very much. I had two meetings that I attended. One of them was the library. I want to remind everybody that the Easter egg hunt is 11 a.m. to 12:15 on April 12th. So if you check with the library, that's when you have that to go to. Next on the 1st of April is My Awesome Body discussion with Roger Gingrich. He's going to be held in the scope of discussion on that there. And then also the Season the Day Spice Club. It seems to be growing. The last report, there was 5 new members at the last meeting, and it seems to be working along. If you're not aware of it, they turn around and talk about spices and some of the recipes that will go along with it. So it's a good option. And the next one was going for the ZBA. Tracy Hardikoff was sworn in as a member of the ZBA, and we had 2 come before us. One was passed and the other was continued. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. School board had a meeting and invited Mr. Gibson. So you've heard that part of the thing. The next meeting is next Tuesday. I will attend. The transfer station committee is going to meet shortly. Aaron's getting some more information available. And the ABC isn't going to meet for a while. My report. Hey, any other comment?
I have a comment with,
Oh, please.
on this here.
That was on the consent agenda. To authorize posting that, or asking Eversource and Consolidated to post that on telephone poles and at town property throughout town. That was the banner the select board appropriated funds 2 meetings ago for, that the Tricentennial put together. Their hope, and with the approval from the select board, they're going to apply to Consolidated and Eversource to put pole installations on the telephone poles. And we plan to apply with the Stars and Stripes for Barrington. As you know, they apply every year.
Yep.
The select board that signs the application, but to do the American flags on the poles.
Which one of these did they finally decide on?
They're going to use both of them, as I
Okay.
understand it, one on either side.
All right. Can we just, Jerry,
No,
That's nothing on the agenda.
thank you very much. Yeah. Write the whole down.
All right, second public session. Anyone here would like to comment further? Any of you who are on virtual on Teams, if you'll raise your hand. And those of you who are on telephone, you'll put *6 and give us a few seconds to get the machine working. I'd be happy to have your comment. Give it a minute. Up. Good man.
I see a hand from Melissa Hewitt.
Yeah.
Our library director.
Melissa, please. Go ahead, Melissa, you're muted. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulty on my end. But I wanted to thank George for mentioning our egg hunt that was coming up on April 9th and just provide some quick clarification for those that were interested in attending. It's split into 3 different age groups, and the children ages 3 and under will start their egg hunt at 9:45. Ages 4 through 1st grade will go at 11 a.m. and 2nd grade through 4th grade will start at 1:15, and this will be held in the playground, in and around the playground where all the mulch is. So we'll have the different groups there, and they'll start off with a story and that sort of thing like we've done in the past. And I know that, speaking for myself and the recreation folks, working closely with Jesse and Sarah on this, we're super excited to have this in-person event back to normal this year. And also the other part is for the teenagers in town. We're doing a egg-scape room on Friday night, April 8th in the library from 6:30 to 8. And we're hoping to get at least enough for 2 teams to go through the library and help find the hidden Easter bunny for Saturday's events as well. So if you guys know of any kiddos that are 5th grade through high school that are Barrington residents, please encourage them to sign up.
Excellent.
Thank you, Melissa. Any questions of Melissa?
Good one, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll stop joking around.
very good. That was very bad.
Didn't crack up.
Okay.
Probably heard it
Did I
before.
scramble the board?
All right. Anyone else have comments? Give you another 30 seconds here. I see no other hands up. All right. In that case, we'll close public comment. Are we going to have, we need public session here?
We do, if you're so inclined, for personnel and reputation.
Need a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, aye?
Now you gotta take a, vote.
Okay, let's do a roll call then. Ms. Capello?
Yay. In session, right?
It's an aye.
It's Coach I.
And Trick, aye?
Thank you, sir. I don't mean to step on your toes. I'm sorry.
I just don't think. But anyway, all right, non-public session.
Shut off your
Back on?
We're back on.
Okay. Welcome. We've just come out of non-public session. Move that we seal the minutes permanently to protect the reputation of persons discussed in legal. Say that correct?
That is
That's my motion.
Second.
It's second, Mr. Bailey, second in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, now.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Maybe I'll do a roll call. No, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.